Welcome to this week's episode of Quest, a journey into true crime and the paranormal. I am really excited, right? This is all I've been talking about.
She has not stopped talking
Right,
about
I
it.
won't
Missy is
stop
so
talking
excited.
about it. It's like craziness. But, this is going to be a very exciting episode because I have as my guest tonight what I like to refer to as paranormal royalty.
Yes.
All right? Now, you're thinking, okay, now, why are you saying royalty? Because being a royal is not just about titles. It is about when you say the name of the Perron family, especially Andrea Perron's name, I kid you not, it is like a hush falls over, and it's like this recognition comes on
Yes.
people's faces, and they're like, oh, I know her. Oh, I've seen
Yeah. Yep.
the Conjuring, and they know it. But it's more than the name recognition. It's the respect
Yes.
that I feel that this family has of what they went through, of Andrea, being such a spokesperson for the family and just really
Absolutely.
relaying her truth and their truth.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is my honor and privilege to have with me tonight as my guest, Andrea Perron.
Hi,
Hey, how you doing?
I'm very well, honey. Thank you so much for inviting me to your broadcast. You have a stellar reputation, and it is really my privilege and my honor to join you tonight. And this close to Halloween rocks my netherworld.
Oh
So we're
yeah.
going to have a great, great interview. I pre-loved you before I even met you,
Oh,
and now we're good to go.
now she's got to come down to New
Right.
Orleans.
Yeah. Now the
Yes.
New Orleans trip's got to happen. But you're so busy. You were talking to me earlier and about like your schedule is just off the chain. I mean, you're going to be nonstop for a while.
I'll be lecturing in New Jersey and then going to Rhode Island, flying into Rhode Island, driving out to Cape Cod, doing an event there, spending the night, coming back, going to the farmhouse the next day, staying there for 2 days, and then going to a cruise ship in Boston Harbor that's going to be there from the UK.
Wow.
And so I'll get to meet a lot of my British friends. I have lots of followers in Great Britain and the United Kingdom in general, like all of them lumped together, simply because they understand. I think, people that grew up in 600-year-old houses are not so shocked
Mhm.
when they see a manifestation of spirit. It's just like, oh, there's another one.
Hmm.
Uh, it's it's just different over there. They're more accepting, I think. Although, I've never ever had one person walk up to me and say, I don't really believe in ghosts. If
Mhm.
they did, I would say, that's great. But that doesn't stop them from believing in you.
Mhm.
And if you really want to have some close encounters of the spooky kind, but also the enlightening kind, go take a tour of the farmhouse and feel the energy at that farmhouse. Go to Harrisville, Rhode Island, to what is known as the Conjuring House, and take a tour of a place that will change the way you think and feel about everything. People that spend the night there and do investigations come out with their minds blown. They, inevitably have something happen to them that they are certain was from another realm, not in their natural 3D world in that house, because that's not where that house is. It's somewhere between the third, fourth, fifth dimension and beyond. It's a vortex, it's a portal cleverly disguised as a farmhouse.
Now this happened
We
like in
should
the
go. You
1970s.
should come with me.
I would love to.
I'm jumping on that plane with
I
you. I
would
was
go
just thinking
like,
about
look,
that.
I would put my headset down right now. Let's go. It is such. I've watched so many, of course, the Conjuring film, and I have your books here on display for a point reference.
Mhm.
The House of Darkness, House of Light, volumes 1 through 3, and it's amazing how, like I said, it was around 1970 that this happened, and
Mhm.
you in an interview that you had with the lady, I'm sorry, her name, that lived there before, that was on your channel,
Norma.
but Miss Norma, and you were telling her how that even when you were younger, that you knew that you were going to write a book about the story of the Harrisville house.
Yeah,
That you,
it really is that. It's the Richardson Arnold homestead.
mhm,
Um, but to the rest of the world, it's the Conjuring house, the real place
Mhm.
sure,
that it was based on. So yeah, it's got, we didn't know of its reputation when we moved in. There were people that knew there was activity there, but it was not something, I don't know how old you are, Misty, but I just turned 65, so I'm officially old. I'm Medicare old. See, I don't even know what I have yet. And I remember a time when it was considered very, very taboo
right,
to even talk about this. I was threatened with expulsion. I was a really good student who followed all the rules, a goody two shoes. But when people asked me about the house, I spoke openly and honestly about it. And it almost got me expelled from high school.
wow,
So I do not, um, as a rule, uh, talk about it in a large public setting, or where there might be somebody that takes umbrage with who I am and what I do.
mhm,
I have to be aware of that, cognizant of that now. But I really think that most of my trepidation about it comes from, uh, you know, 40, 50 years ago, when it was a very different situation than it is now. People have come to accept that there's something beyond our mortal existence.
Mhm.
And sometimes what I talk about can fracture a belief system in
mhm,
another. And they have to reject it because for instance, there are religions where you are not allowed to believe in ghosts,
correct,
period.
correct,
You are not. And that's it's in the bylaws, for God's sake. So
hmm,
um, I'm always trying to be mindful and respectful of the feelings of other people, Misty. It's important that people have their belief systems. Even atheists have a belief system, and their belief is that there's no such thing as God.
right,
So it seems to me the best thing to do is just spend my life in total seclusion, other than going to paranormal conferences where I'm with 1,000 people at a time, which is awesome. Everybody gets it. They're all there for the same reason.
right,
They all know each other. It's a big fat love fest. It's an opportunity for us to get together year after year after year. The biggest and best in the country that I've been to is the Upper Peninsula, Michigan, Paracon, which is in this little town called Sault Ste. Marie, right on the Canadian border. Half of the town is in Canada, and half is in the United States, in Michigan,
okay,
with a bridge that connects the two. It's an amazing place. It's out in the back ass end of nowhere,
hmm,
with a podunk little airport, which is why I always drive up from Detroit now. I'm
right,
not
I
getting
got you,
stuck there again.
right,
Um, and it's huge. It's like 1,600 people come to this event, and it's exhausting, but it's wonderful. And I really would encourage you to come and participate. And I'll tell the promoter to make sure that he puts your table next to mine, so
oh,
I can help you navigate the treacherous waters of the Upper Peninsula, Michigan Paracon
that
with
would be
the
really cool.
Ubers.
Yeah, I would love that because I really want to next year like to start the ground running and just be like you were telling me about all the things, and I was like, yes, that's what I really
Quest
want
on
to
a quest.
quest on a quest. Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
And I let me ask you something because you were talking about how respectful that you are about other people's beliefs, and would you consider yourself like a sensitive or an empath or anything?
I don't label myself anything at all
Okay.
because I think I'm everything all at once, and then some. You know, I read light language from extraterrestrials. Most people can't say that.
Hmm.
Um, I have experiences that have been so life altering for me and mind blowing for those that I have shared it with, that it's, if I hadn't grown up the way that I did, living the experiences that I did with my family, and I read our story just as a book, I don't know if I would be able to believe some of what is in there. Um, I got very detailed in terms of the apparitions, the manifestations. I
Hmm.
mean, to the point where whoever is reading the story, well, as you know, you get a very strong visual in your own imagination of what these words convert to in terms of an image that you get, like the woman with the broken neck that hovered
Yes.
Mhm.
over my mother's body and
Yes.
such. And I was very, very specific in my use of language. If you find a word that you don't know what it means, look it up and you'll see that it is absolutely specific to the context of the rest of the sentence, that no other word would suffice.
Hmm.
And I'm sorry for being an English major, but it is, I tell people when they say something like that, it's like, oh my God, I had to keep a dictionary beside me while I was reading your books. And I was like, you
No,
know what? If the worst thing that happened to you today was that you had to learn a new word, count your blessings.
that's the
You know?
truth. We got so much craziness going on, and I mean, the world. You have your own YouTube channel, and then the World Awakening is like a joint one that you're doing with someone, or is
I
that
have two shows
okay? All
on
right.
KGRA,
Okay.
that network, but they're also available on my YouTube channels, Andrea Perron YouTube,
Hmm.
and I also have another channel, House of Darkness, House of Light. I don't know how much transfers over between them, or if there's, I don't know anything about. I am such a techno idiot. If other people didn't do this for me, I would be dead in the water, because I have kind people all around me in my life that are like, how can I help? What do you need me to do? I'm like, God bless you. It takes a
I'm the same
village to
way.
raise this idiot. I am telling you, I am a techno idiot.
Same. I thank God for Brandon, and
Oh,
it's just I would.
Brandon is a godsend.
He is. He's a blessing. Let me tell you. Let's go back to when you first decided to write the books, and like, did y'all have like a family meeting, or you wanted their input, or
on August 7th of 2007, it was the first day of my vacation away from a very stressful job. I was a youth counselor, did therapeutic work, was the grief counselor at a campus for emotionally troubled boys who couldn't be maintained in public school. So it was a private school, but it was residential facility. And it was a tough job. It was also a wonderful job. But it was as if a bell went off in my head and something, the universe said, it's time to tell the story. And I went to the local CVS pharmacy and bought a couple of packs of index cards and a recipe box. And I started writing down, and I've still got it. I mean, it goes everywhere with me. It's a part of my life. Um, I would never part with it. It's my original keepsake from the books.
cool?
And I worked for a solid week just writing down my own personal recollections of growing up in that house. And then I started putting it together, and I told my mother and father, and they were so relieved because both of them had always known and had told me that I'm the writer. I should be the one to write the books, to tell our story. which is essentially a family memoir. Oh, I started on August 7th of 2007. On August 7th of 2014, 7 years to the day that I began the project, my last of the trilogy was published. And I had turned all my material into my publisher months before, in May of that year. And I had no idea. When I was on the phone with one of my friends, my friend George, that I wrote in a Flickr with, which, if you can handle the blood and gore, is really a very incredible story. George came up with that. I would never ever have come up with something that demented in my consciousness. Not there. It's not possible. But anyway, I was sitting at the computer over at my mother's beautiful cherry desk, and a notification popped up for an email, and it was my publisher telling me that volume 3 of House of Darkness, House of Light had just gone live, had just been published.
Wow.
And I said, you know what, George, hold on, wait a minute. Something's just ding, 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 ding. There's something going, there's something I need to check. And I took the phone into my bedroom, and I opened up my grandmother's suitcase where I keep all of the calendars of my life. I have decades of calendars, with people's birth dates and big events and so on and so forth. I keep calendars. And I went back to 2007 and went right to that date. And it turned out it was right. It was the exact day that I had started the project 7 years before. And there were 7 members of my family that lived in that house. And that number 7 comes up over and over and over again in my life. I don't know the significance of it, but it's enough to make it worth studying a little numerology to figure it out, because it is certainly a recurrent thing. But yeah, I threw myself into that project to the exclusion of all else. I worked on it every single day, even like I would take off Thanksgiving because I was doing the cooking, and I would take off Christmas because Christmas. But other than that, I worked on the books every single day. And it was the biggest commitment I ever made in my life to anything or anyone. And it was really a commitment to my whole family, to tell them, I love you, and I see you, I hear you, I know what you experienced, and let's be brave enough to share it with the world. Misty, my mother, said to me, this is not the kind of story that one should rightfully take to the grave. If we lived it, we need to be brave enough to tell people about it.
And that's very wise words, and you definitely, y'all's story is known worldwide now.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And
It is.
yeah, and the way that people react to just hearing y'all's name, or it's like the respect
That
and
touches my heart. That's so nice.
well, it's the way that like in your books, and the way that you do the interviews and everything, and like you said, how respectful that you are of other people's beliefs, and the way that everything that you believe in, and it transcends through when you talk and when you write, and therefore people, they do feel that respect that you give out, and so therefore that it's given back to you.
Well, I think that everything that we do in life, whatever we put out in some way, shape, or form, it, based on the circular nature of life and of our entire universe, even the shape of the planets, to the ring we put on our fingers when we marry the person we love. It's universal. And it seems to me that the most important thing about this story is it's not a horror story. The Conjuring is considered a horror movie,
Right.
but our story, the real true story, yes, there are things in there that are horrifying. People have said, I can't read your books and sleep at night. I can't read your books at night. I have to sleep with the lights on after I read. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to write it that way. That was not my intention to scare the hell out of you. Because ultimately it's really a love story. It's a story of forgiveness and
Yeah.
redemption, of acknowledgement and gratitude, and the embracing of those that dwelled among us. I mean, for all intents and purposes, we lived with the dead for a decade.
Wow.
And even the cranky ones,
Yeah.
I just love. I do, because they exist.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows what kind of lives they led that made them as cranky as they are. I think all they need is love. I think all any of us need is love. And love is our superpower, and it is the ultimate healing force in life.
Yeah.
I do believe in the power of love. I do.
I think
And
that's what
I
sets her
love the
apart.
spirits in
Right.
the farmhouse. I was devastated. Oh, Misty, I was devastated in my senior year of college when my father called me one day and told me that in 1980, it was in April or May of 1980, I was absolutely floored. It never occurred to me that my parents would sell the farm. I thought I would live there my whole entire life. We had made peace with the spirits. It wasn't hell on wheels. We'd been through it. And I really look back on it now, and I think they were just really trying to get our attention in a big way.
Hmm.
And my mother has incredible psychic abilities. My mother is queen of telepathy. My mother is
Wow.
um, so gifted in so many ways that her presence there must have been some kind of a trigger. And the energy of five little girls that were really tomboys. I mean, if you wanted one of us, go find a tree that we were hanging upside down from, by our ankles, ready to hit the earth when we fell, because we're not the best tree climbers. We fell out of trees a lot.
Right.
Uh, yeah, no broken bones, but bruises for sure. It was a wonderful way to grow up. It was an inspirational way to grow up. It was illuminating. It was enlightening. It was inspiring. It taught me. I mean, my mother is here 2 rooms from where I'm sitting,
Hmm.
and we have her at home in hospice palliative care, and she will always be home. This is where she will stay.
Right.
And I've been here for 10 months, other than just moving from one house in Florida to another house in Florida because of a massive flood, which is a whole nother story. I don't know how long your show is, but we probably don't even have time to cover it. But I was down there for a month. I just got back 2 days ago. I have not unpacked. I found my makeup bag 10 minutes before it was time to do the show. Oh my God, my life is insane. I'll tell you, I'm going back up to the farm in a few days, doing Halloween up there.
Oh,
It's
wow.
going to be amazing. I am so excited to be back there. It is the only place on earth that feels permanent to me, the only place that feels like home to me.
Now,
Everything else feels transient. It feels temporary. It feels like I'm here for, this amount of time or that amount of time. Just go ahead and make some great memories because you're going to move on. But the farm is permanent in my life, and every opportunity that I get to go back there and communicate with them, feel the energy, feel the love. I've been working very closely with a very gifted couple, Cody Despian and Satori Hawes,
oh,
and
yes.
they have developed a method of communicating directly with spirit
Oh.
that is something I never thought that I would live to see, but I have. And I do everything in my power to support them and lift them up and get their message out into the world, because the last time I was at the farm, the spirits got very, very active, got like their feathers ruffled, and they were trying to come through Satori, and she's like, "Whoa, whoa, I can't talk to all of you at once simultaneously. Who's got a message? Who's the message for?" They spell out Andrea. And then they have this method of going through the alphabet,
Right.
and the tapping stops on yes or no, one for yes, two for no, and then a knock, an ethereal knock. You cannot determine where the sound is coming from when it happens. And so, oh my God, I'm sitting on the sofa just watching them in front of the fireplace. And the message is for me. Satori says, "How many words?" There's 4 taps, 4 words. And then they spell out, "We miss your family."
Oh,
I was blown
that
away.
was everything.
I was sitting on that sofa just crying like a little girl, just so touched.
Wow.
Such love that I feel for them, as though I know them as well as my own family. That there is a familial attachment. And I saw an apparition in the house when I was 17 years old. I only saw her once. And she was the spitting image of me at this age, with bigger hair and a bun on the top of her head, but the same basic hair, thick gray, with a very beautiful dress on with a high collar that went all the way to the floor. We were standing on the hearthstone, and I looked into her eyes, and they were my eyes. I looked at her facial structure, and it was mine as an older woman. And I was 17 years old, just about to turn 18. And she smiled at me. She smiled at me. It was, it touched me to the core of my being. And I realized everybody in the family could see her. They were all sitting at the dining room table looking in, because my father saw her first. He saw her before I saw her. And I turned and I looked, and there she was, but she was facing me sideways. And so nobody else could see her face except me. And she was a mirror image reflection of me at this age.
Wow.
So I feel an attachment. Mom said, "We could leave the farm, but the farm will never leave us."
Well,
And
she was right.
she was right about that. My mother's right about everything. It's just a given. If she says it, she's right.
Right.
And it didn't. And it has continued with all of us have been touched by spirit throughout the course of our lives since living at the farm, because well, Misty, once that door is open, you can never close it again.
Yes.
Never.
Well, it's
You're right.
also because they respected the spirits so
Mhm.
well. You go, I don't know, go on a ghost hunt out here, and ghost hunters, how truly respectful are these individuals?
You're talking about like general
Just
ghost.
general.
Yeah, because I
Nobody's
understand
respectful.
that. Yeah.
Nobody's respectful. Whereas this family was absolutely respectful, forgiving, accepting, and loving. And look what happened.
Right.
You lived peacefully.
Right. You were on an episode of Ghost Brothers, and
Yes.
like
Oh,
let me
that was
tell you, that was great. But
it was.
let me tell you, when you walked in and you said, and I felt it, even though I wasn't there, I felt it in my core when you walked in and you said, "I'm home."
Oh,
And when you said that, I felt like you were home. I mean, it just really, you could tell that being there was everything.
Yeah.
It completes you. Like you said, the farm it didn't get out of y'all. Y'all may have had to leave, but everything was there. And they remember, and like you were saying, how Satori, how they did that. And I've seen them do what they do, and it's amazing, and they get wonderful,
Amazing.
wonderful results. But the spirits knew you were there,
yeah.
and that's to me, that's everything, you know. And like I said, I felt when you said, I'm home. And a lot of people maybe don't realize it because they're thinking about the movie and,
Yeah.
you know, some of the experiences that has, but it's your home, it's your nucleus, it's everything. And like I said, I just felt it when you said it.
Yeah, and it's strange too because in a lot of respects, I feel like this is my first and only time on this planet. I really do. I
Hmm.
mean that. And so it's counterintuitive, it's contradictory for me to have a vision of an apparition when I really feel that this is my first and only time that I am assigned here, that I am out of here. I have always felt like a misfit. I have always had to fake it till I make it. Uh, Everything about my life and my perception of reality is so skewed compared to most everyone else that I know. That it's it's almost I feel like some clerical error was made in the cosmos. Like I got sent to the wrong place at the wrong time. And what the people around me saying is, no, 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 you got sent to the right place at the right time. And your message is so powerful and so important. And I say, well, but I'm only the messenger. It could be anybody. And then they say, no, it had to be you. You
Right.
had to experience what you did. It was your destiny. And then live that experience. And then 30 years later, tell the world the true story. And then it burgeoned into a feature film that went all around the world and, you know, virtually every language. And I got catapulted from relative obscurity
Hmm.
where my books would be languishing had it not been for the Conjuring to, you know, the one of the top uh, booksellers in this genre in the whole world.
Hmm.
I mean, thousands and countless thousands of book sales later, hundreds of thousands of books, and people really do want to know the true story behind it, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
so much more compelling. It's, you know, Ed Warren on his deathbed told Lorraine Warren, you make sure that while you're still among the living that you get the Perron family story told. And he's on the record in many places describing what they experienced at our house to be the most compelling, most disturbing, most intense, and most significant of all of the investigations that they ever conducted over the course of a 40 plus year um, pairing as paranormal investigators. No, it really is an amazing thing. And Mrs. Warren contacted my mother after we moved out and wanted her permission to write a book and make a movie. And my mother said, absolutely not, absolutely not. And they offered our family life changing, life altering money
No
to
doubt.
do it. And my mother said no because the day that Lorraine called in August of 1980, when we were living at the new farm, or well, it's ancient land, but a relatively new farmhouse, in the Salicoa Valley in northwest Cherokee County, Georgia, which I was in complete, utter, total culture shock. Oh my God, this Yankee girl was plunged into the depths of Southern. I didn't even know what to make of it, but you know, that's a whole nother story for a whole nother interview. Um, and when we got to that farm, when we moved there, the day that we were moving away, Nancy refused to go. She refused. She went to the new homeowners, who she was their babysitter actually,
Oh.
and said that she would stay on as caretaker at the house indefinitely while they decided what kind of remodeling they were going to do or whatever. and the rest of us had to leave her behind. And when we were pulling out of the yard, there was a very tall woman, an apparition of a woman standing in the window right behind her in the dining room. And my mother saw her and I saw her. And I said, Nancy's not alone. And mom said, I know. And we drove away. And that same woman was standing behind my sister Cindy in the front window of the new house in Georgia when we
Wow.
arrived in Salacoa Valley 2 days later. Cindy was standing there holding a cup of coffee and a coffee pot, like, come on in, it's all ready. She had been waiting for us.
Hmm.
And she was standing right behind her. And my mother I was driving the Mustang, and my mom just reached over and put her hand on my hand, and she said, this isn't over. This will never be over. And she was right about that too.
Oh,
That's incredible.
yeah. So, I mean, has everything been written about? Or there's more to
No,
come? Or there's some things that you're not going to write about?
there were things. Well, that's interesting that you asked that, because there were several incidents that my sisters asked me not to include
Hmm.
in the original trilogy. There's really only a few things missing. But it was just because either the stories were too painful, too personal, that they didn't want them included. Christine asked me to leave one out. Cindy asked me to leave one out, and Nancy did. And so I did. I didn't, I still have what I wrote about it, but I didn't include them in the books. But after they saw how well received our story was and how embraced our family has been by the paranormal world,
Hmm.
the believers in the world that are so loving toward all of us. Uh, and especially me. I mean, I'm the one that's out there all the time, and I've met so many, countless thousands of extraordinary people. I was doing my show the other night with a man that I'm working very closely with named Rupert Guy.
Hmm.
And we work on extraterrestrial stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, and he said to me, he asked me, I was on his show, I think, or he was on mine. I can't remember. It was one of the two. And he said to me, how do you feel about your viewers, about your readers, the people that gravitate to this show, A World Awakening, which I'm so proud of. It
Yeah.
has touched countless lives, and I'm so pleased with how well it's going. Um, and my answer was really spontaneous. And I said, I love them. I love them. And most of them I will never, ever meet in person, but I absolutely love them. I love them because this message goes nowhere without them. They are the foundation. It doesn't matter how loud a bullhorn you have, how large a platform you have access to. If nobody's listening, it doesn't matter.
And that is so true. If you don't have, if your message doesn't get, it doesn't matter. You could have the grandest poem or the grandest song, but
Yeah.
if it's not received or,
Hmm.
it's not. Have y'all watched the movie The Conjuring or any
Oh
or
God, I can quote the script. I've seen it so many times.
me too.
Warner Brothers flew my family out for the premiere in Hollywood,
Nice.
and then I had to go to Rhode Island. I had to go to Michigan. I saw it. I think the week that it opened, I must have seen it 8 or 9 times. They sent me from one theater to another, from Providence to oh God, I can't even remember everywhere I went. It was a whirlwind. adventure, but it was also exhausting.
Oh yeah.
And in a lot of ways, I was the face of The Conjuring, and
Right.
they put me out there to do that. But they put me out there to do that for a very specific reason, and that was that nobody. There were some things that happened on the set that kind of freaked the people out that were, making the
Oh,
movie,
okay.
and so they didn't. They didn't do a whole lot of promotion of the film. And one of the bosses at Warner Brothers called me and asked me if I would do it. And I was told, talk about your books, talk about your books, tell people that there are books,
Hmm.
because everybody associated with The Conjuring, James Wan, the producers,
Right.
the cast, everybody had read my books. So they knew and took very seriously that they were representing living people, that ours was a real story. And even though it um, morphed into something else in The Conjuring, there are still elements of truth in an otherwise fictionalized film, but it, it leaves people, I think, with several overarching impressions. One of which would be that good conquers evil
Hmm.
and love conquers fear. And the Perron family endured an extreme haunting that they all survived. And all of that is true, and those are accurate impressions to leave. I delve far more deeply into the good versus evil aspects of our story in the books.
Hmm.
And many people write to me and tell me after they've completed the trilogy that they feel like they lived at the farm with us, that they experienced those things with us, that it became part of their lives, that it got into their minds and into their bloodstreams, and it's often been described as interactive literature. You have to know when to put the book down when it
Right.
gets really intense, whichever volume you happen to be in. Um, and at some point, I will republish them because so much has happened at the farm since we left.
Hmm.
I think it warrants, it's a never ending story. And with now Cody and Satori being there and doing what they do, uh, it has been one revelation after another. I'll give you a specific case in point. I wasn't there that night, but Ken DaCosta from Rise Up Paranormal
Hmm.
was there. They were filming, and Julie DeMay from Rise Up was there and covering one camera. Ken had another, and uh, what happened with Cody and Satori that night was amazing. When we moved, the day that we moved into the house, four of the five of us, the children, saw an apparition standing in the corner of the dining room, fixated on Mr. Kenyon, who's the man we bought the house from, and he was moving out as we were moving in. It was January 11th, 1971. And coincidentally, and I don't believe in coincidence, the birthday of my friend George.
Oh, okay.
Um, that's the day he turned 8 years old.
Mhm.
And I saw him first, but he looked like solid flesh and blood to me. I did not distinguish him from a living, breathing human being at all, which means I was seeing him in his dimension, which was, I think, the first time that that's ever happened to me. And as I walked past him, I greeted him, said, "Good morning, sir," and he didn't respond, like he didn't hear me or see me. I went in the kitchen and asked my mom who the man was with Mr. Kenyon. She said, "Nobody's with Mr. Kenyon. His son's on the way, but he's not here yet." Okay. I must have figured I was what? 12 years old. I must have figured it was a neighbor or a friend. I went back outside the kitchen door, back over to the truck. Meanwhile, Christine walks in. She sees him, asks mom, Then Cindy walks in. She sees him and sees through him and walks into the kitchen to tell mom. And as she's doing that, Nancy walks in and leans over to her and says, "Did you see that man with Mr. Kenyon?" "I did, but he just disappeared."
Wow.
And that was our introduction to the paranormal world. And it happened within 10 minutes of moving to the farm. We had visited the farm a number of times as a family before we actually moved in. None of us have any recollection of seeing anything that would indicate spirit activity at all
Welcome home.
until the day we moved in, as though they were waiting in the wings. We
Right.
owned it. And that's when it was safe to come out and play.
It was a welcome
Um,
home.
Right.
And then we saw him again later, as my father was talking to Mr. Kenyon in the dining room. And April, my baby sister, was in the kitchen for the duration with my mother. And we found out when we got there that Mr. Kenyon was not packed. He was not ready to go. And my mother had to unpack boxes and use the packing material to pack all of his dishes
Oh,
in the
wow.
cupboards so that she could put our dishes away. He was not even remotely ready. Meanwhile, my father says, "Earl, the house is big enough. You know, we know you don't want to leave. Why don't you just stay here with us? There's plenty of rooms. You can have your own space." And he got very emotional and he said, "I can't. My son built a home for me on his property. I have to go." Um, but he stopped and visited with us many times before he passed away. He was one of the most lovely human beings that I have ever had the pleasure or privilege to know. So kind, so sweet and gentle and generous, and a beautiful soul. So, anyway, my sister Nancy, who saw the apparition disappear, also saw him reappear while the four of the five of us were in the dining room, and Mr. Kenyon was being told by my father that he could just stay and live with us. And suddenly he showed back up again in the same place in the corner. And we're all looking at each other like, "Do you see that?"
Yeah.
Without saying a word, because he's standing like 3 feet away from two adult men who don't see him at all, but the kids all see him, and we're not sure that each other is seeing him. Um, and my sister Nancy later said that she named him Manny because he was a man,
Mm.
and she was only 10 years old, and that was as creative as she could get at the time.
I mean,
So let's bounce forward 50 years. And Cody and Satori are standing in front of the fireplace, and spirit is coming through that identifies himself by the name Joseph. And everybody kind of looked at each other like this, everybody's read the books. Did Andrea write anything about a spirit named Joseph? Nobody remembered a Joseph, and there was silence as there was a little exchange, and then the tapping began again. And what he spelled out was, "Nancy called me Manny."
oh,
That's incredible.
Now, my
amazing.
mother did research on the house, and Johnny Arnold had apparently gotten sick and died in the house from drinking horse liniment in the eaves upstairs. And that was the story that we were working with. That was what little, the records were so sparse and fractured and like stored everywhere. And it was, I don't know how she came up with as much as she did, but she did. And, but we always just assumed that based on the age of Johnny Arnold when he died, that this spirit and the way that he appeared looked like someone from the 1800s. Well, he was, but his name was not Johnny. It was Joseph. And we don't know why Joseph's spirit is there because we never found any records about him or him having died in the house or on the property. So we don't know. But he was the one that was there watching over Mr. Kenyon. And to find out half a century later that this happened
Yeah, it's still there.
is mind-boggling. It is. But it's also exciting. You know, I get upset when people say that they go into these historically haunted locations and try to clear the spirits out and make them go to the
Right.
light and move on. I think that's an incredibly presumptuous thing to do.
What if they
It
don't want
was
to?
their house first. It was their favorite place first. They were there first. We are the intruders. How dare we? And then if we can dispel spirit, make it go away, what do we learn?
Yeah, you're right.
Why would anybody do that? I mean, isn't it better to attempt communication, to learn what we can from them? I mean, I don't even care who they were in life, that they still are in afterlife is a freaking miracle. It is magic. It is science we don't understand. It is otherworldly and different realm that exists simultaneously with our own. That I think we live in a multi-dimensional universe, maybe in a three-dimensional world, but we live in a multi-dimensional universe. And for some reason, and I can't tell you exactly why, maybe it's just the age of the house or the residual energy, you know, what has been left there over the centuries, but it is alive with death. It is absolutely amazing. And they are on the other side watching us all the time. You know, I went on an investigation at Penhurst Asylum in Pennsylvania once,
Wow.
and only once, and I will never ever go back. It was so oppressive. It was so sad. It was,
Yeah.
oh God, just thinking about it makes me want to cry. It was so awful. Overwhelming feelings of grief and sadness and pain in that place. But we walked into the children's playroom in the Devon building. It's in the basement.
Hmm.
And everybody had recorders going, and Pandora's box, a spirit box, was set up. And George walked in and he said, I have Andrea Perron with me. Is there anyone out there that knows the name of the movie her family story is associated with? That's what he said. And through every single device simultaneously came The Conjuring.
Yeah,
Through every device.
I believe in that. That
You know, so either they have a big ass movie screen wherever they are and they're keeping up with, you know, current theatrical releases,
right.
or they can see absolutely everything that is going on in our lives, and we have zero privacy.
I never
Zero.
believed that spirits had to stay in one place the entire time. Never.
No,
Never.
no, they don't. They're absolutely free to
They have
fly.
free
Right.
reign.
And it's like,
Absolutely.
and I really believe that. And it's like that they have like a network
Yeah.
and they travel, and that's why that they know about you and about me. And then you're at other locations, like you said, at Penhurst of all places. You wouldn't think that they would say that, but they did because I don't know if they chat, if they gossip, or just are just flowing from one from one place to the other.
That would
But
be
that's
me.
a great concept, and maybe to do an more
Yeah.
experimentation on, because I don't think it's really done a lot. Is
No.
trying to see if places are connected through energy or through the
Yeah.
web or different places, things like that.
Yeah.
So I really like that story at Penhurst. That's
No, that
pretty
was a fabulous
badass.
story.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I really, appreciate you so much being on the show. I hope you can join us again another
Oh,
time.
anytime.
Thank you. I appreciate
Anytime,
that.
darling.
Andrea,
I
me
think
and
the
Misty are going to come
world
up
of you
over to
and
Georgia.
Benny.
I'm going to throw Misty in my car and we're going to come visit you. I promise.
You know, you're close enough to be able to do it.
Yes.
I
You
know. That
know,
would
bring
be
some
cool.
film equipment. We'll go for a little walk. I'll tell you some
Oh.
spooky stories. Just say that we just scratched the surface is the understatement of the new millennium. So I have to come back. It's
a
just
must.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Yeah. So thank you so much. I'm going to conclude the show, but if you don't mind hanging around, I can get a selfie with you until we can do it in person.
Yes.
On the screen.
okay.
Okay. All right. Just one moment. So, I mean, Andrea Perron and the Perron family, like I said, they are just such respected members of the paranormal
Yeah.
community.
Yes.
And I can't even put into words what it means to me to, I got to meet Christine and, of course, Andrea. And it's just, I mean, I don't think this can be topped.
It was eye-opening for me.
Oh, yeah.
Very much eye-opening.
Because I mean, you believe in the paranormal and
Yeah.
but you're not like all up in it like I am.
No,
and
but I
just
will
really-
tell you that I think that this interview here kind of opened my eyes to make me want to do things, investigations, meet people, do things like this, because it's not. You always hear that the paranormal is one-sided. It's scary. It's scary. It's scary. We're getting rid of these spirits, but it's not always like that.
Right.
And just as these books say, and just like she said,
Yeah.
there's love, there's
There's more to
compassion,
it.
there's more to it.
And I really resonated with what you said, how that you miss the spirits and how that they
Yeah.
know you even though that the time
I
had
love
passed,
that.
and I resonate with that because I have felt that different times, not often, but like I've had spirits follow me home from different things, and
I've had it
and
before.
then they would or it seems like they would be gone, and I would tell Catherine I miss them being around, and people who don't understand that, they kind of look at you like, oh yeah, you want ghosts around you or
Right,
whatever,
right.
but it's like unless you've experienced it yourself, no matter what is put into words, it cannot convey how that feeling is to miss the dead. It's just really, and then like for them to know you is such an honor that they know who you are
To know and remember
and to remember.
50 years later.
And if you think about it, we as a living, we want to be known, we want to be loved, and that's all that they want too, because the majority of them, they were human, and they're still wanting love, and they're still wanting recognition and to be remembered.
I love
So that's, if you have a haunting in your house, or maybe look at it in a different way. Everything's not evil.
Yep.
Everything just are like us. We want attention and love and understanding. So thank you to everyone who is watching, and I will see you next week at Quest, a journey into true crime and the paranormal. Thank you and good night.